What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for the Total Takedown. This is UFC San Diego. We're going to talk overs and unders. As always, make sure you check out Monday's podcast where I break down the entire card with a special guest, going over betting perspectives. Today, we are only focusing on the unders and the overs for this fight card. The show is brought to you by Pub Sports Radio, and the lines are sponsored by Superbook Sports. So let's dive straight on into this thing. Priscila Cachoeira taking on Ariane Lipski. This is a fight that we've spoken about before. Total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 160. The under 2.5 is plus 140. I mentioned last time that I feel like this is a fight we could see a finish in. We have seen Ariane Lipski show off some submission chops. We have seen Priscila Cachoeira have unrealistic power at this weight class. Lipski's got those elbows, cut stoppage opportunities. Priscila Cachoeira has tapped more than once in her UFC career. Lipski has been ground and pounded more than once in her MMA career. Both these women have finishing upside, absolutely, but this number just seems a little bit too shy for me. The plus 140 on the under 2.5 is something that we would generally see in a men's division. I don't know if the women are caught up quite enough with their finishability, even given how dangerous these two are, that we want to be paying plus 140 for this under 2.5. So for me, it's going to be a pass. But like I said, I'm not going to be shocked if this thing does go to that under 2.5. Both these women absolutely could get the finish done. I just don't think the price is juicy enough to actually play it. Damon Blackshear taking on Youssef Zalal. Total set at 2.5. The over is minus 215. The under is plus 190. And I would be looking over in this spot. Youssef Zalal is notoriously hard to finish. The guy's got good submission defense. He's tough. He's durable. He's cutting down to a new weight class. So theoretically, he should be at least used to moving bigger bodies around if he's not the bigger man here in this fight. Damon Blackshear has amazing scrambles in jiu-jitsu, high-level grappling, good backpack, good submission ability. He chains those together, stays one step ahead of you. So he absolutely could win via submission. But Youssef Zalal is a guy that just simply doesn't finish. So we don't get our rule of both guys finishing. In fact, we've got one guy that's got finish upside, and the other guy takes way away from that because you just don't finish Youssef Zalal. So by the criteria, I don't have two guys that contribute. We got to go over. I'm looking over 2.5, minus 215 here. Tyson Nam taking on Ode Osborne. Total again at 2.5 for this one. The over is plus 100 even money. The under 2.5 is minus 120. Seems a little strange. Ode's been such a finishing monster as of recently that you would think this under 2.5 just absolutely should be minus 180 or something like that. You know, this would lean towards being an under, especially with the kind of power that Tyson Nam has. But Tyson Nam is a guy that absolutely has to be respected for his durability. He is tough to get out of there. He is tough to put away, but he's got that finishing power all his own. Ode Osborne, I think, is the better striker here, the better fighter, better, more well-rounded. However, he has been known to get into slugfests. He has been known to drop those hands. He's got some finishing upside himself. But Tyson Nam is not a guy I'm going to count on to get knocked out. So this fight could get stretched out. Tyson Nam will be live with that big power late in the fight if Ode Osborne slows down the way we've seen it before. It's going to get real hairy, real sketchy right around this 2.5 round mark. I will lean towards the under. However, I am not going to be playing this, and I'm not going to be shocked if it goes over. Charlie Ontiveros taking on Gabriel Benitez. Total set at 1.5 for this one. Under 1.5 is juiced all the way to minus 200. Over 1.5 is plus 175. Charlie Ontiveros just simply doesn't belong in the UFC, folks. I don't mean to be mean, but that's just the way it is. Gabriel Benitez is a guy that's been on a skid. He's shown some rough patches. He's gotten rocked and hurt. He's been taking on a good level of competition, though, and because of that, you kind of expect him to really shine here. Charlie Ontiveros has no answer for the grappling, and that's not something we see from Gabriel Benitez a whole lot. But if you should choose to take this thing to the ground, Charlie's probably going to be a fish out of water. And Charlie's best opportunity to win this fight is going to be a round one knockout. He's got those big, wild kicks, very athletic, very fast on the feet, big for the division. So if he's going to catch Gabriel Benitez, it's probably going to happen early. It's not something where he'll be able to hang in there longer than Gabriel and then maybe catch him late. I wouldn't think, just because of the fact that Gabriel Benitez has that higher level class experience, and the longer this fight goes on, the more it probably favors him as he gets to feel around his opponent, a guy that really is kind of a glass cannon one round or bust and must be standing to get the finish. So I'm going to say the under 1.5 makes some sense, but no way am I laying minus 200 on a 1.5 under for this fight. Lucas Brzezinski taking on Martin Buday. We got total set at 1.5 here. Over 1.5 is minus 165. The under 1.5 is plus 145. I talked about this fight very specifically on my podcast on Monday. The over 1.5 is relatively playable here at minus 165, and I'm very tempted to do so. Other markets, other sports books have that line a little bit higher, so It always makes me wonder. Superbook is like super sharp, so I wonder if they're like baiting that money here in this spot. I don't think much of Brzezinski. And Buday, the whole thing about him is his strategy is to drag his fights late. He body locks you, he clinches you up, he drags you to the fence, drains that gas tank, tires you out, and then he'll look to put you away if he gets the opportunity to with those big power knees up against the cage. So I won't be shocked if this fight finishes sooner than the 1.5 mark, but at the same time, the way Buday fights, it sets up to go over. So if he's in the driver's seat, unless he's getting an early finish, unless he fights with a little more sense of urgency, or maybe Brzezinski isn't even close to what we think he is, which, let's be honest, is not a ton. Unless he gets that first round finish, I kind of think this is going to fly over that 1.5. So minus 165 over 1.5. I'm tempted there. I'm honestly very tempted there. Lupita Godinez taken on Angela Overkill Hill. Total set at 2.5 here. The over 2.5 is minus 370. The under 2.5 is plus 310. And yeah, this is over all day. Neither of these women are easy to finish. Neither of these women have a ton of finishing upside. I mean, Lupita obviously is very powerful. She can ground and pound people out of there. She's working on her submission game. That's something that's coming along. Angie Hill has been submitted before, but she's damn near impossible to knock out. If someone like... if somebody like Lucrative's girl, who I'm blanking on the name, of course, she just bounced back in her last fight. I can see her face so clearly. You know who I'm talking about. Amanda Lemos. If Amanda Lemos cannot head kick Angela Hill's head off, then I don't think Lupita Godinez is going to be able to do that either. So I can rely on both these women's durability. I do think this over 2.5 is probably the way to go. I don't see how this fight finishes unless someone slips on a banana peel, or unless Lupita's put a whole ton of work into that submission offense and manages to grind and catch Angela Hill. We'll see how this one goes. I'm expecting this thing to go all 15 minutes, though. Josh Quinlan taking on Jason Witt. Total at 1.5. Here we go. This is another one rebooked. We talked about it the first time. I am a little tempted on that over 1.5 minus 150 because Jason Witt is a guy who has been known to at least get past that first round. We know all about the durability. We know about the chin concerns. And he just manages to get in there and grind on his opponents. His wrestling is top-notch. He's able to keep himself safe. But as soon as you touch him, if you've got any type of power, you just put this guy away. He cannot take a punch. But this fight being rescheduled after being pushed back a week, they can't make the same cut. They're getting a catch weight, 10 pounds up. And you got to wonder what that does for the durability of these guys. Maybe Josh Quinlan hits harder because he's got those extra 10 pounds. But maybe Jason Witt's chin holds up a little bit better because he's got those extra 10 pounds. Maybe his gas tank holds up a little bit better because he's got those extra 10 pounds. There's a lot of questions about this fight because of this fight being pushed back and the weight class changing ever so slightly. I'm going to stick with my original lean. I'm going to say over 1.5 at minus 150, but that is maybe one of the most terrifying bets you can ever make in a Jason Witt fight because you need that guy to hang in there through the entire first round when his opponent is fresh and has the opportunity to starch him. You got to get past that first 2 minutes and 30 seconds of round 2 to cash the ticket. Minus 150, they're making you pay for it too. I will say over 1.5, but I don't think I'm going to have the balls to bet it. Gerald Meerschaert taking on Bruno Silva. Another 1.5 total here for us on this one. Over is even money plus 100. The under 1.5 here is minus 120. Bruno Silva is just kind of, everyone knows he's going to come out and look to put Gerald Meerschaert away. Gerald Meerschaert not defensively all that great with his striking, so Bruno Silva's going to have the opportunity to land that big, heavy power. And if this thing gets mixed up and goes to the ground, Gerald Meerschaert obviously can submit pretty much anybody down there. Bruno has been submitted before, but Bruno Silva's ground and pound is something of legend in the MMA community. So I think Bruno Silva probably finishes Gerald Meerschaert. It's a matter of how long it takes place. He better not let it get past round 2, though, because if it gets into round 3, you know Meerschaert's going to find a way to tap this guy. So I will say under 1.5. I do think we probably get a violent fight here. I don't trust Gerald's chin, and the power of Bruno Silva is something that I think a lot of people aren't going to be able to stand up to. So I'll say under 1.5, minus 120 is the play there. Nina Nunez taking on Cynthia Calvillo, yet another pushed back fight, one that's kind of flying a bit under the radar since that first time it got announced. Over 2.5 minus 205, under 2.5 plus 180. This is narrative city, right? Like you've got people out there talking about how Nina Nunez, training for Amanda's fight, she's not been working on herself, but then she comes out and says that, Amanda's choice to leave ATT, she never did that. She's been at ATT the whole time, so she's training there for this one herself. So maybe she is prepared, maybe she's sharp, maybe working with Amanda during that championship training camp has actually been a benefit to her. I don't freaking know. This fight is extremely confusing. I don't like Cynthia Calvillo the way she quit on the stool in her last fight. Granted, she's fighting the upper echelon of the division. She's facing some of the top contenders this division has to offer, so you can't really doubt her for that. But the quit, anytime a fighter shows that quit in them, it's something that it's almost impossible as bettors for us to look past, especially with their next fight. You got to go in there and see them actually have that fire back. You got to watch them show the ability to pull off a victory, go through adversity, and get a victory before I'm able to put my money back on them. Cynthia Calvillo is maybe the only one of the two here that has that finishing upside, except that she has shown that she will quit in a fight. So if Nina Nunes comes out and looks better than we've ever seen before, if she's refreshed, if she's ready to go, and if she hits harder up a weight class, because she is going to be up a weight class from where she used to be, we can see Cynthia Calvillo maybe wilt under that pressure again. So I don't want to lay minus 205 on an over 2.5, even though that seems like the dead nuts easy play. Cynthia Calvillo does have the ability to finish, and she also has the ability to quit, which gives Nina Nunes a slight opportunity to put this fight away before that final bell. So I'll say over 2.5, but I don't trust this fight at all. I'm not touching it with my money. Azamat Murzakanov taking on Devin Brown Bear Clark. We've got another 2.5 total here. The over is plus 110. The under is minus 130. And this is almost binary, right? Like, Azamat Murzakanov is a finisher. This guy's got nasty power, explosive, big flying knees. We've seen all that stuff before. So if you're saying under 2.5, you're probably saying Azamat wins this fight. If you're looking over 2.5, you're thinking you're going to bank on the durability, the cardio, the pace, the pressure of one Devin Brown Bear Clark. Now, if this thing does go over 2.5 rounds, I mean, maybe Azamat can win with, big power strikes, big moments and knockdowns, things like that, but probably not, right? Like, if he is the one that's getting those things, he probably ends up putting Devin Clark away. Now, Devin Clark has shown himself to be very tough, very durable, and in his last couple fights, he's been kind of showing off a little bit more aggression. He put away my guy William Knight in his last fight. So the under 2.5, there could be a little bit of upside for Devin Clark to smoke the gas tank of Azamat Murzakanov and get a finish himself. This one's tough. You really kind of have to pick your side and understand there's a little bit of risk that the other side might be able to squeeze in there for it. So I guess I'm going to say under 2.5 here. I wouldn't be shocked if Azamat Murzakanov was able to go ahead and get some kind of a big shot in. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Azamat Murzakanov gasses out and Devin Clark is able to get him out of there maybe towards the beginning of that third round. That's something that I thought that Tayfun Nchukwu was going to be able to do. I think Devin Clark has the tools to do that and maybe do it a little bit more efficiently. So I will say under 2.5 at minus 130 is the pick for that one. Next up, we've got the ladies, Yazmin versus Yazmin. Total set at 2.5. The over is minus 185. The under is plus 165. And I would be tempted to play the under here on this one. UFC debutantes, both of them show big-time skill sets and upside given their particular styles of fighting, striker versus grappler, right? We're going to have one fighter who is very much capable of KOing her opponents on the feet. We've got the other one who needs that fight absolutely desperately on the ground, but once it's there, she is deadly once she gets on the ground. So I think I'm going to say under 2.5. We don't know a whole lot about these two. Low-level women's MMA. Honestly, low-level women's MMA is the best for finishes. That's when you get somebody who finds the hole in their opponent's game that no one quite knows exists just yet, and they abuse it. So I think there is the upside here for a finish. I like the under 2.5 in that women's fight if you're going to bet anything. David Onama taking on Nate the Train Landwehr for our co-main event. Total set at 2.5. I'm sorry, total set at 1.5 for this one. Over 1.5 is minus 150. The under 1.5 is plus 130. And I agree with that over 1.5. Nate the Train is a guy, he did run himself into the knee of Herbert Burns and that got him KO'd. But if he doesn't get touched on the button that way, this guy goes for a full 15 minutes at a pace that few people can keep up with. David Onama, we've seen him do extremely well in the UFC. We've seen that big power come out before. We have also seen him get outworked and outgrappled. That was his debut against Mason Jones. Short notice, not a full camp. So you got to give him a little bit of a pass there in that spot. But I think Nate the Train will fight very, very similarly. I think we're going to see some grappling exchanges. I do think we're going to see this fight extended a little bit. Now, granted, David Onama, always getting better, young, improving fighter. There's a chance that he clips Nate Landwehr early and puts this fight away. I can absolutely see it happening. But if he doesn't do that, I think he's going to have to find that power shot, and it might take him a little bit more than a round to get it done. So I'll say over 1.5. Probably not betting this one. I've got questions that need to be answered, so I'm not really going to put my money on the line here for this total. But I will pick the over 1.5, and I think maybe we see a second or a third round finish. Dominick Cruz taking on Marlon Chito Vera. Total set at 4.5 for your main event this week. Over 4.5 is minus 180. The under 4.5 is plus 160. And this one's tough. This one's really tough because now we've seen Marlon Vera go the distance before and win a decision, and it is based on those big moments, the knockdowns, the damage. He can do that, and he can go a full 25 minutes doing it. In fact, he seems almost like a Diaz brother. He's a guy that gets stronger the deeper the fight goes. Dominick Cruz, we've seen him start to slow down a little bit. We've seen him start to get hurt, rocked and wobbled in a couple of fights before. So again, same situation. A guy that we've seen go 25 minutes, but things are changing a little bit. He was kind of a decision machine, must go all 25 type of fighter, but we're seeing a little crack in the armor here. So I think the under probably has some upside here. Marlon Vera is just a monster finisher. He's absolutely a beast in there. He's got this slick ground game on him that people seem to sleep on and forget about. He's massive. He hits really, really hard, and he's made out of iron. You're not going to hurt Marlon Vera. Someone like Dominick Cruz never stands a chance of hurting Marlon Chito Vera. That's not the way he fights. I think we've got a type of fight where Dominick Cruz probably wins the minutes, but then as he starts to slow down and fade, as the damage accumulation starts to add up for Marlon Vera, he gets himself back into this fight. Now, it comes down to whether or not he finishes Dom Cruz the deeper this fight goes. He's more than capable of it, but Chito also is a guy that will play to the crowd. He'll play with his food. You know, once he's got somebody on the ropes, he'll hurt them, and then he'll sit back and he'll admire his work and get people going and fired up. So I can't necessarily trust him to pull that nuclear option trigger and get Dominick Cruz out of there, even if it's a close fight and he needs a finish to ensure that he doesn't get robbed on a judge's decision. That's just not really the way the guy is. So I want to say under 4.5. I think Marlon Vera has the ability to finish Dom Cruz, and I think Dom Cruz has shown the weakness in his last couple fights that he might be able to be finished, so that gives me at least that path to somebody showing the susceptibility at least to getting finished. But this is a very sketchy main event, in my opinion. It's going to be hard to play either side of this. I do think it's pretty binary. Dominick Cruz only wins a decision here in this fight. So if you're picking him, minus 180 to the over 4.5, maybe you can get away with him surviving and Chito getting a decision win. But if you're playing under, you're basically banking on Marlon Vera here in the main event. That's the Total Takedown, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in here to the show. We'll see you tomorrow for the post-weigh-in show, the undefeated post-weigh-in show, right here on Pub Sports Radio. Smash that like button, give us a share. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck. Let's roll.